Hi everyone! Before I begin my paper titled A Reference Guide for Gender Inclusivity Online, reflecting on my creation of a digital gender representation resource, I just want to quickly introduce myself. My name is Lauren and I use the pronouns she, her, and hers. Currently, debates on gender in social media indicate that gender has increasingly become a source of discussion. However, as Shirin Ramazaba states, gender roles are culturally constructed and persist as an element limiting representation in social media. Present debates are clear. Change is needed to develop further inclusion and diversity online with gender and other social categories like age, race, and disability. Based on this belief, creating an awareness of gender and gender inequalities is critical in overcoming hegemonic systems of gender oppression. For this paper, I will be reflecting on an online resource I created on Twine and publicly shared on GitHub. The resource, A Reference Guide for Gender Inclusivity Online, was created in 2019 as part of a digital humanities course. The purpose of this online reference guide was to help explain the impact and importance of gender inclusivity online. I argue that while many platforms have seemingly strived to create a form of gender inclusivity, the male-female gender binary problematically remains the default. Overall, I suggest 8 tips for gender inclusiveness online, which concludes with collaboration in hopes of furthering the list. I'd like to note here that the hopes for collaboration extend beyond wanting to further the list of tips. My aim in creating a basis for a collaborative resource was to allow it to be used and altered as users see fit. While I have a background in gender studies, I am also aware of my limitations in not knowing everything about the subject, and I'm also self-aware of my limited knowledge of digital technology and processes. By creating a resource and a digital tool that allows for collaboration, my resource can hopefully be adapted, altered, changed, and referenced based on the knowledge of others. This project was ultimately rooted in the ideology that critical thinking and theorizing is not limited to one person or academia, and rather can occur in a variety of settings with a multitude of voices. As such, the feminist principle of collaboration is crucial for me, as gender is something that affects us all, and resisting the dominant norms surrounding gender involves acknowledging other people's voices. The image on the right in the presentation slides is the first or introductory passage to the guide in Twine. As I mentioned previously, the reference guide for gender inclusivity online was created using the digital platform Twine. For those who may be unfamiliar, Twine is an open source tool that allows users to create or interact with nonlinear stories. The stories can be simple or complex, and the tool itself is completely free, which allows it to be more accessible. The blue and green image here on the left is the Twine logo. So this platform allows users to make choices. The choices and passages enable users to locate information relevant or interesting to them. It also allows them to revisit the information. As this is a nonlinear resource, I opted to include a table of contents to help users locate information and ensure they had visited all the passages. Another benefit of this platform was it allowed me to provide links to additional material where I was unable to expand or wanted to further support the information shared. Overall, I used Twine as my platform to create an educational basis for gender inclusivity online, but extended my project with further references and the potential for collaboration to allow people to learn and contribute resources to build an inclusive and collaborative environment. As a result, I aim to both provide and create a gender inclusive resource. My guide was broadly composed of 4 sections. I say broadly because of the fact that in Twine there are several passages that link to one another, and as such, there are connections throughout. But in general, the guide was framed around the 4 following parts. The first part of the guide consisted of background and foundational information. So the resource guide provides an overview of the project and then explains the concept of gender, or what I call Gender 101, the history of gender, and pronouns. The second section of the guide describes the importance of gender inclusivity online, using Facebook as a primary example. Here, I highlight the need for social agency amongst users and introduce the concept of intersectionality to discuss the way social media platforms continue to privilege binary gender identities. The third section of the guide provides a list of 8 suggestions to make digital platforms more inclusive. The list of suggestions each linked to a passage with further information. These suggestions include thinking outside the binary, providing options that extend beyond a fixed list, using inclusive language, engaging with intersectionality, considering your design and content, questioning your choices through reflection, challenging privilege, and collaborating. The list of suggestions links each idea to a passage with further information so users can learn more about what each suggestion means or might look like. A PDF option was also available to download, which allowed users to save, review, or share the suggestions list in a more convenient way. This PDF included the list of suggestions and the additional passages that elaborate on the areas of inclusivity. The image on the right is a screenshot of the title for the document. So the final section of the guide focuses on collaboration and reflection. Here's where I explain the purpose and importance of these two practices while engaging with online debates of identity. One major focus of this final section is a discussion of my methods for the project and the issues related to my design. While the list of suggestions might appear to make the debate of gender inclusivity online straightforward, it is complicated. So here I'd like to share some excerpts from the About the Project page that are in the guide itself. So, quote, "The project came to fruition through a final project from a graduate course. The project asked us to further the analysis of some aspect of feminism, diversity, digital humanities, or some social justice movement. What began as an idea to consider gender in social media has evolved into a collaborative feminist resource guide that uses Twine as a digital tool to present the information. The goal was to provide an open-source shareable resource that can be used to start a conversation about gender inclusivity. It is understood that there are many ways to be inclusive online, and this project is only one path for achieving gender inclusivity that may not be suitable for every person or every project. It was also recognized that gender is complicated and gender inclusivity is not always easy. However, the hope was that our viewers would join in our mission to achieve some level of gender inclusivity online. As Bibbin states, it is vital we acknowledge the systems in place that continue to limit gender or misgender individuals, as this only perpetuates violence, discrimination, and otherness. With that said, the purpose of focusing on gender inclusion is because gender inclusion is important for everyone, as gender affects every person. Gender inclusion is a means of including all people, and when everyone is included, we learn to accept and understand each other. Through gender inclusion, we can become more accepting of differences. Users, creators, and designers can use awareness, collaboration, and inclusion practices to create change online. For instance, users need to learn to notice what is missing from the websites they visit. Creators need to consider what they are creating and who is creating their project. Likewise, designers need to try to implement inclusive designs while considering who is designing their projects. While the guide was designed to help users, creators, and designers be more gender inclusive, it was also critical to inquire about the need to collect gender data, asking yourself and others questions like, what would it look like if we started a movement in which online platforms asked for gender identity in an inclusive and diverse manner? Why is it important for social networks to be open with gender preferences? What is the history and impact of gender? What steps can be implemented, utilized, and altered to change gender identifying online? Does the website you are visiting, creating, or designing need to include or ask patrons for their gender? If you cannot conceptualize a specific reason, then gender may not need to be a required variable. However, there is a specific reason to collect gender data, or if there is a specific reason to collect gender data, then users should be provided with more than two binary options, meaning more than male and female options. The resource guide was created and posted anonymously by secret feminist Killjoy in collaboration with 3 peers. Whether a user provides feedback, alters the code, implements suggestions, or reads the guide, their participation is a form of collaboration. The decision to post the guide anonymously online was rooted in 2 main reasons. One, not connecting to a specific person allowed the guide to feel more like it could belong to any user, and 2, digital projects engaging with and declaring themselves as feminist in nature have continued to be targeted online, and so anonymity provided some safety, end quote. Ultimately, there were challenges with creating and collaborating with the guide. The image on the right is the behind-the-scenes or story passage outline of the guide in Twine. The white boxes represent the passages, and the arrows demonstrate the direction and connections between passages. A challenge with the guide was with the ability to connect to other online resources. While this option was beneficial in one sense by providing more or expanding on information that otherwise could not be covered, it also allowed for distractions. By exiting the resource to view another page, there was no guarantee users would return to engage with the remaining material. Additionally, it was hard to conceptualize a way to share the resource guide while also staying anonymous online. Once the resource guide was shared publicly, the main issue became the lack of interest in collaboration. While the intentions of the guide were to be collaborative, this methodological framework is ultimately limited if there is no one collaborating. Now, with that said, there is still the possibility for interaction with the guide. So, if anyone is interested in accessing the inclusivity suggestions list in the PDF format, it is available on the Secret Feminist Killjoy WordPress page. The link is secretfeministkilljoy.wordpress.com. I'm also open to collaborating if anyone is interested. Thanks so much for listening.